The unexpected encounter. I never thought a single evening would change so much in my life. Most of my days were predictable: work, gym, sleep, repeat. I had a couple of casual flings before, but nothing that lasted long enough to matter. Women came and went, and I figured that was just how it was supposed to be at my age. But then I met her, and everything shifted. It all started on a late Friday night. My best friend convinced me to go to a quiet lounge downtown. I wasn't really in the mood for drinking, but he said, "You need something different, man. You're stuck in a routine." The place wasn't crowded. Soft jazz filled the background, and warm dim lights made the atmosphere intimate. Most tables were occupied by couples, laughing or whispering close to each other. I was about to order a whiskey when I noticed her. She sat alone, at a corner table, with a glass of red wine and a book in her hand. That already struck me as unusual. Who brings a book to a lounge? Her long dark hair cascaded over one shoulder, and she wore a black dress that wasn't overly revealing, yet it hugged her curves in a way that made it hard not to look twice. Something about her aura made me pause. She wasn't trying to attract attention, yet somehow she had all of mine. "See something you like?" my friend teased, nudging me with his elbow. I smirked but didn't answer. Instead, I walked straight to the bar, ordered my drink, and stole another glance at her. She noticed. Our eyes locked for just a second, and she gave me a half smile, barely noticeable, but enough to spark something inside me. I told myself to play it cool, but I couldn't resist. A woman like her wasn't just someone you ignored. I walked over. "Mind if I join you?" I asked, standing near her table. She closed her book slowly and looked up at me. Her eyes were deep brown, almost challenging, like she was testing me before even saying a word. "That depends," she said calmly. "Are you going to talk, or just sit there and stare like most men do?" Her directness caught me off guard. I laughed lightly. "Guess I'll have to prove I can do more than stare." She gestured to the seat across from her. "Then sit." I did. Her name was Elena. She was older than me at least by 5 or 6 years, though she carried herself with such confidence it felt like more. She worked in publishing, loved traveling, and apparently had no patience for small talk. "You don't strike me as the kind of guy who reads much," she said after a few minutes, tilting her head. "Why's that?" "You walked in, scanned the room, and the first thing you looked for wasn't the bookshelf. Men who read usually give themselves away." I chuckled. "So I failed your test already?" "Not necessarily. Maybe you're the kind of man who prefers to write his own story." Her words lingered in the air, heavier than I expected. There was something about the way she spoke, calm, deliberate, like every sentence carried a hidden meaning. The conversation flowed more naturally than I anticipated. She wasn't easy to impress, and I liked that. She challenged me with questions, teased me about my answers, and occasionally leaned in closer, lowering her voice just enough to make my pulse quicken. Time slipped away. Before I knew it, the lounge was nearly empty, and my friend had already left after texting me a joking good luck. Elena glanced at the clock, then back at me. "It's late. Do you always read in bars until midnight?" I asked. "Only when I expect something interesting to happen." She took a slow sip of her wine, her lips brushing the glass in a way that felt almost intentional. Tonight didn't disappoint. There was an unspoken tension between us now, more than just casual interest. She stood, gathering her things. For a moment, I thought she was leaving, and I felt an unexpected wave of disappointment. But instead, she looked at me and said, "Walk me outside." The night air was cool, and the city lights reflected on the wet pavement. Elena walked with elegance, her heels clicking softly against the ground. When we reached the corner, she stopped. "This is where I go left," she said, pointing down the street. I nodded, unsure what to say. The silence between us was heavy, charged. Finally, she stepped closer, just enough that I caught the faint scent of her perfume, subtle, but intoxicating. She looked me in the eye, her voice low and steady. "You're not like the others here. Most men would have already tried something stupid by now. You didn't. That makes me curious." "Curious enough to see me again?" I asked. Her lips curved into a faint smile. "Perhaps. But I don't make promises easily." She reached into her purse, pulled out a pen, and wrote her number on a small napkin from the lounge. Handing it to me, she added, "Call me tomorrow. Not tonight. I don't like impatient men." And just like that, she turned and walked away, leaving me standing there with her number burning in my hand. That night, I couldn't sleep. Her words replayed in my head, and the way she looked at me like she already knew something about me I hadn't figured out myself made it impossible to think about anything else. I didn't know what exactly I was getting into, but I was certain of one thing: Elena was not just another woman. She was different. Dangerous, maybe. But irresistible. And I was already hooked. The first date. The next morning felt unusually slow. My alarm rang at 7, but I stayed in bed staring at the ceiling, the memory of Elena replaying like a scene from a movie. Her voice, her eyes, the way she commanded the conversation, I couldn't shake it off. I reached for my phone more than once, tempted to text her right away. But her last words stopped me: "Not tonight. I don't like impatient men." So I waited. The entire day dragged. I distracted myself with the gym, errands, anything to kill time. Finally, in the late afternoon, I typed out a simple message. "Me, this is me, proving I can follow instructions." A few minutes passed. Then my phone lit up. "Elena, good. That already makes you different from half the men I meet." Relief washed over me, followed quickly by excitement. "Me, so, when do I get to see you again?" "Elena, tonight. 8 p.m. I'll text you the address. Don't be late." The message ended with a period, no emoji, no softness. Just a command. It felt less like an invitation and more like a test. I liked it. At 7:55 sharp, I arrived at the address she sent. It wasn't a crowded restaurant or a flashy rooftop bar. Instead, it was a small, tucked-away Italian place with candlelit tables and the aroma of fresh pasta drifting out the door. Elena was already there, sitting by the window, sipping a glass of white wine. She wore a deep green dress this time, elegant but understated, her hair pulled back to reveal the sharp lines of her cheekbones. "You're on time," she said as I sat down. "Of course." I got the impression that being late wouldn't end well. She smirked, her eyes glinting. Smart man. Dinner with her was unlike any date I'd had before. There was no nervous small talk, no awkward silences. She asked questions that cut deep, forcing me to reveal more about myself than I usually would. She wanted to know about my ambitions, my past relationships, what I feared the most. At one point, I laughed and said, "You interrogate like you're writing a novel." She leaned closer. Maybe I just want to know if you're worth my time. Her bluntness was disarming, but instead of pushing me away, it pulled me in. Every word she spoke carried weight, as if she was deliberately weaving a web around me. And the more she spoke, the more I wanted to stay caught in it. Halfway through dinner, the waiter came to pour more wine. Elena leaned back slightly, crossing her legs. That's when I noticed a man at the bar watching us. He was in his 30s, sharp suit, expensive watch. The kind of guy who clearly thought he was important. When Elena excused herself to the restroom, the man seized his chance. He walked over to me with a smug grin. "You're with her?" he asked casually, as if it was unbelievable. "Yes," I said flatly. He chuckled. "Good luck keeping up. Elena doesn't stick around long. Trust me, I've tried." Before I could reply, he walked away, leaving me with a mix of irritation and curiosity. What history did she have with him? And why did he sound so sure of her patterns? When Elena returned, I debated whether to mention it. But the way she sat down, calm and composed, made me think better of it. She didn't owe me explanations, not yet. Still, I couldn't help but wonder. After dinner, she suggested a walk. The city buzzed with weekend energy, neon lights reflecting on the pavement. She walked slowly, deliberately, as if every step was part of some silent choreography. "Did you enjoy tonight?" she asked. "More than I expected to," I admitted. She stopped under a street lamp and looked at me. "And what did you expect?" I hesitated. Someone beautiful but distant. Someone who would let me buy dinner and then disappear. Instead, I found. "Found what?" she pressed. "Someone who makes me feel like I'm the one being studied." Her smile widened, subtle but genuine. "Good. Because I am studying you. And so far, you're not disappointing me." There was no hesitation this time. I stepped closer, and before either of us said another word, I kissed her. Her lips were soft yet commanding, matching the rhythm she seemed to control even in silence. For a brief moment, the world around us disappeared, the lights, the noise, the strangers passing by. It was just her, and the undeniable electricity between us. When we pulled away, she whispered against my lips. "Careful. Once you start, you might not want to stop." The night didn't end there. She invited me to walk her home, and I agreed without hesitation. Her apartment was on the 4th floor of a modern building, minimalist but stylish. Bookshelves lined the walls, filled with novels, poetry, and travel journals. A faint scent of sandalwood lingered in the air. She poured us both a glass of wine and led me to the balcony, where the city stretched out before us in glittering lights. "This is my escape," she said, leaning on the railing. "Up here, the noise fades, and I can think." I stood beside her, close enough to feel the warmth of her body. "And what are you thinking right now?" She turned her head slowly, her eyes locking onto mine. "That you're either going to be a mistake, or the most interesting thing that's happened to me in a long time." The way she said it sent a shiver down my spine. She didn't kiss me again, but she didn't need to. The tension between us was stronger than anything physical. I stayed longer than I should have, talking, laughing, learning more about her. She told me about her travels, the risks she had taken, the lovers she had left behind. Always with a tone that suggested there was more beneath the surface than she revealed. When I finally left, it was past midnight. She didn't invite me to stay the night. Instead, she walked me to the door, her hand brushing against mine just long enough to leave me wanting more. "Good night," she said softly. "And remember, don't rush me. Patience will take you further than you think." The door closed, and I stood there in the hallway, heart pounding, realizing just how deep I was already falling. That night, I understood one thing clearly: Elena wasn't just a woman I wanted. She was a challenge, a mystery, and maybe even a danger. But I was already too far in to walk away. And something told me this was only the beginning. The test. For a few days after our first date, I tried to keep things casual. I didn't want to overwhelm her, and I remembered her words about patience. Still, every morning I woke up with Elena on my mind, and every night I went to sleep wondering what she was doing. She texted sparingly, sometimes just one sentence, sometimes nothing at all. But when she did, it always felt deliberate. Like she knew exactly how long to leave me waiting, how to build that quiet tension until I was craving her attention. On Wednesday, she finally messaged. "Elena, there's an art gallery opening tomorrow. Come with me." No question mark. No, would you like to? Just a command. I smiled to myself. She knew I'd say yes. The gallery was in a renovated warehouse, minimalist and modern. Bright lights, abstract paintings, wine glasses clinking in the background. Elena was already there when I arrived, wearing a sleek black dress with an open back that drew more than a few stares. "Right on time," she said when I approached. "You wouldn't let me live it down if I wasn't," I teased. "Correct." We walked through the exhibit, stopping in front of pieces that caught her eye. She spoke passionately about art, not just describing what she saw but analyzing what it meant. Listening to her was intoxicating, her voice low, confident, filled with subtle conviction. But then something shifted. A woman approached her, tall, blonde, with sharp features and a designer dress. She greeted Elena with the kind of familiarity that made me pause. "Elena," the woman said warmly, placing a hand on her arm. "It's been too long." Elena smiled, though her eyes carried a flicker of something else. "Clara. I didn't expect to see you here." They exchanged polite words, but I could sense an undercurrent. Clara's gaze flicked toward me, then back to Elena, a hint of amusement in her eyes. "And who's this?" Clara asked. Before I could answer, Elena spoke. "A friend." "Just a friend." The word stung more than I expected. I tried to mask it with a smile, shaking Clara's hand, but inside, I was unsettled. As the evening went on, Clara lingered. She joined our conversations, laughed a little too easily at my jokes, and touched Elena's arm as if testing boundaries. At one point, when Elena stepped away to greet someone, Clara leaned closer to me. "You know," she whispered, "Elena doesn't usually bring men to these events. You must be interesting." Her tone was playful, but there was something sharper beneath it. "I'll take that as a compliment," I said carefully. "It should be," she replied, her smile curling like a secret. When Elena returned, Clara excused herself, but not without giving me one last knowing glance. Later, as we left the gallery, I couldn't help but ask, "So, Clara?" Elena raised an eyebrow. "Curious already?" "Shouldn't I be? She's an old friend. That's all." Her tone suggested I shouldn't push further, but the way she said it left more questions than answers. We ended up at her apartment again, sharing a late glass of wine on the balcony. The city spread out below us, but my focus was entirely on her. "You didn't like me calling you a friend," Did you? She asked suddenly, breaking the silence. I looked at her, surprised. You noticed? I notice everything, she replied softly. So? Did it bother you? Yes, I admitted. Because I don't feel like just a friend. She studied me for a long moment, her eyes searching mine. Then she leaned in, close enough that her breath brushed my skin. Good, she whispered. It means you care. But you'll have to earn more than a title with me. Her lips met mine, and the kiss was deeper this time, hungrier, more urgent. She pulled me closer, her fingers gripping the back of my neck, and for a moment I thought she might finally let go of all the restraint she carried. But then she stopped, pulling back just enough to leave me aching for more. Not tonight, she said, her voice firm. Patience, remember. I exhaled, frustrated but also fascinated. She was playing a game, and I was starting to realize just how much she enjoyed it. The following days blurred into a rhythm of anticipation. Elena and I saw each other more often, coffee in the afternoons, quiet walks in the evening, occasional dinners. But always with limits. Always with a sense that she was keeping me just on the edge of something bigger. And then came Clara again. One evening, Elena invited me to a small gathering at her place. A few friends, wine, music. When I arrived, Clara was there. She smiled at me like she'd been expecting me, her eyes sparkling with mischief. We meet again, she said. Elena introduced me properly this time, but I noticed the way Clara watched us, the way she tested the air between us. At one point, when Elena left the room to grab more wine, Clara leaned close. She likes you, she murmured. But be careful. Elena doesn't give herself easily. She enjoys control. I met her gaze steadily. I can handle that. Her smile deepened. We'll see. When Elena returned, Clara's expression softened back into charm, but the seed was planted. I couldn't stop wondering just how much Clara knew about Elena's secrets and why she seemed so interested in me. That night, after everyone left, Elena and I stood by her door. She touched my chest lightly, her fingers tracing absent patterns. You're quiet tonight, she observed. Just thinking, I admitted. About you. Clara. Us. She tilted her head, her eyes narrowing with curiosity. Are you jealous? Should I be? Her lips curved into that faint, unreadable smile. Maybe. Jealousy can be dangerous. But it can also be useful. Before I could respond, she kissed me again, slow, deliberate, leaving me breathless. Then she pulled back, her voice low. Don't overthink it. Just follow where this leads. And with that, she closed the door, leaving me alone in the hallway once more. As I walked away, one thing became clear: Elena wasn't just testing my patience. She was testing me. And Clara? She wasn't just an old friend. She was part of the test. The question was, could I handle it? The night of no return. Elena had a way of keeping me on edge, like she knew exactly how much to give before pulling back. But after weeks of lingering touches, stolen kisses, and sleepless nights thinking about her, something shifted. It was a Friday evening when she called me, not texted, not invited, but called. Her voice on the line was calm, steady. Come over, she said simply. That was it. No explanation. No hint of what to expect. When I arrived, she was waiting at the door. She wore a silk robe that shimmered faintly in the hallway light. For the first time, she didn't greet me with a smile or a teasing remark. Instead, she looked me straight in the eye, as if deciding something in that moment. "Inside," she said softly. Her apartment was dimly lit, candles scattered around the living room, the faint scent of sandalwood stronger than before. A record played in the background, low, sultry jazz that filled the silence between us. "Wine?" she asked, already pouring 2 glasses without waiting for my answer. I took mine, but barely tasted it. My eyes were on her, and she knew it. "You've been patient," she said, setting her glass down. "More patient than I expected." "Was that the test?" I asked. "One of them." Her robe slipped slightly at the shoulder, revealing smooth skin, but she didn't adjust it. Instead, she stepped closer, her hand brushing my jaw. "I need to know," she whispered, "if you can handle all of me. Not just the easy parts." Her lips met mine, and this time there was no hesitation. The kiss was deep, consuming, weeks of restraint finally breaking loose. She pressed against me, her body warm, her breath quickening. My hands moved to her waist, pulling her closer, and for once, she didn't pull away. We moved slowly, almost ceremonially, as if every step toward her bedroom was a ritual. Clothes fell away piece by piece, not rushed but deliberate, each reveal a test of control. She led the pace, guiding me with the slightest gestures, her eyes locked on mine like she was daring me to look away. The night blurred into touches, whispers, and heat. It wasn't just physical, it was power, surrender, and something deeper neither of us dared to name. When it was over, we lay in silence, the city lights spilling faintly through the curtains. Elena rested her head on my chest, her fingers tracing lazy patterns across my skin. "You passed," she murmured. "Past what?" I asked, half dazed. She smiled faintly, her eyes closed. "You'll find out." I thought the night would end there, peaceful and quiet. But around 2 a.m., the sound of a phone buzzing broke the silence. Elena shifted, reaching for her nightstand. She glanced at the screen, and for the briefest moment, her expression changed, tightened, as if she'd seen something she didn't want me to notice. "Who is it?" I asked softly. She set the phone down face down. "Nobody important." But the tone of her voice told me otherwise. The following days were different. Elena was still warm, still passionate, but sometimes I caught her drifting off in thought, her eyes distant. And then, on Tuesday, it happened. I stopped by her apartment unannounced, hoping to surprise her with dinner. But when the door opened, it wasn't Elena standing there. It was Clara. She leaned casually against the doorway, a glass of wine in her hand, her expression smug. "Well," she said slowly, "look who it is." For a moment, I was frozen. "What are you doing here?" "Relax," she replied smoothly. "Elena's in the shower." She asked me to wait. The way she said it, the confidence in her voice, made my stomach knot. She stepped aside, letting me in. The apartment looked the same, candles lit, music playing softly, as if nothing was out of place. But everything felt different. Clara moved closer, her eyes locked on mine. "You think you know her," she whispered, her voice dripping with amusement. "But you don't." "Not yet." Before I could respond, Elena appeared from the hallway, her hair damp, wrapped in a towel. She froze when she saw me. "You weren't supposed to be here yet," she said quickly, almost defensively. I looked between them, the tension in the room thick enough to choke on. "What's going on?" Elena's jaw tightened. "It's not what you think." But the problem was I didn't know what to think. That night didn't end with answers. Elena dismissed Clara with a firm but quiet tone, and though Clara left, she did so with a smile that made it clear she knew more than I did. When the door closed, I turned to Elena. "Tell me the truth." She held my gaze for a long moment before speaking. "The truth is complicated." "Try me." She sighed, walking past me to pour another glass of wine. Her shoulders were tense, her movements precise. Finally, she turned back. "Clara and I, we have history. More than history. She was part of my life in ways I don't usually talk about. And she's not the type to walk away quietly." I felt a rush of emotions: jealousy, confusion, curiosity. "So why is she here?" "Because she likes to test me," Elena said flatly. Then, after a pause, "and maybe to test you." The words hit me harder than I expected. I thought back to Clara's whispers at the gallery, her lingering looks, her sly remarks. "What kind of test?" I asked carefully. Elena didn't answer right away. Instead, she walked up to me, close enough that I could feel the heat of her skin. "The kind you'll have to decide if you want to take," she whispered. And just like that, she kissed me again, fierce, urgent, as if daring me to keep up. That night, as I lay awake beside her, my mind raced. The passion between us was undeniable, but so was the shadow Clara cast over everything. I had gotten what I wanted: Elena, fully, without restraint. But with it came questions I wasn't sure I was ready to answer. Because deep down, I knew one thing: this wasn't just a romance anymore. It was a game. And the rules were only starting to reveal themselves. The choice. I should have known the night Clara showed up wasn't the end, it was the beginning of something much more complicated. Elena grew quieter in the days that followed. She was still warm when we were together, still passionate in the way she kissed me, but there was a weight behind her eyes, as if she was carrying something she couldn't or wouldn't say. And Clara? She lingered like a shadow. Every time I saw her, I felt both drawn in and on guard. She had a way of speaking that was half truth, half provocation, always leaving me guessing whether she was warning me, or seducing me. The breaking point came on a Saturday night. Elena invited me to her apartment for dinner. When I arrived, I was surprised to find not just one glass of wine set out, but 3. Clara was already there. She sat comfortably on the couch, legs crossed, her smile sharp as ever. Elena stood near the window, arms folded, watching me carefully. "Sit," Elena said, her tone calm but firm. I hesitated, then obeyed. The air between the three of us crackled with tension. Clara swirled her wine lazily, breaking the silence first. "Elena tells me you're different," she said, eyes fixed on me. "That you're patient. Strong. Curious." I didn't realize I was being evaluated, I replied carefully. "Oh, you've been tested from the start," Clara said, glancing at Elena with a knowing look. "The question is, do you want to keep playing?" Elena finally spoke, her voice steady. "Clara and I share a history. Intense, complicated, not always easy. She knows me in ways most people never will." Clara smirked. "And I know how hard it is for Elena to let anyone close. Which makes you unusual." I looked between them, my chest tight. "So what is this? A test? A trap?" "Neither," Elena said softly. It's a choice. She stepped closer, her eyes burning into mine. If you stay with me, you need to understand who I am, not just the surface, not just the safe parts. That means accepting that Clara is part of my past, and maybe part of my present, too. Her words hung in the air like a challenge. The room was thick with unspoken tension. Clara leaned forward, her gaze playful but sharp. She's giving you more honesty than she gives most men. That should tell you something. And what about you? I asked. Why are you here? Clara's smile deepened. Maybe to see if you're strong enough to handle her. Or maybe to see if you're strong enough to handle both of us. The words hit me like a spark to dry wood. The suggestion hung heavy, electric, impossible to ignore. Elena's eyes narrowed, but she didn't contradict her. Instead, she simply watched me, as if my reaction mattered more than anything else. The night blurred into something I hadn't expected. Wine, laughter, tension that walked the razor's edge between rivalry and desire. At moments, Elena and Clara teased each other like old lovers, at others, they sparred with words sharp enough to cut. And me? I was caught in the middle, pulled by both their energies, unable or unwilling to resist. At one point, Clara leaned in close, her lips almost brushing my ear. Careful, she whispered. Once you're in this deep, there's no way back. Elena heard it. She didn't stop it. She only watched, her expression unreadable, as if measuring me with every glance. By the end of the night, lines had blurred. The three of us sat together, the city lights flickering through the windows, the atmosphere thick with heat and possibility. Elena finally spoke, her voice low, deliberate. This is the truth, she said. I don't do ordinary relationships. I don't follow rules. If you want me, you'll have to accept that. Accept me. All of me. Her hand brushed mine, firm, grounding. Clara's gaze lingered on us both, her smile softer now, almost approving. The weight of the choice pressed down on me. Walk away, and I'd leave behind the most intoxicating, dangerous woman I'd ever met. Stay, and I'd be stepping into something far more complicated than I'd ever imagined. I took a breath, my heart pounding. And then, without hesitation, I said, I'm not walking away. The silence that followed was heavy, but not cold. Elena's eyes softened just slightly and she leaned in, kissing me with a fierceness that left no doubt. Clara watched for a moment, then looked away, as if granting us a small, rare piece of privacy. When Elena pulled back, she whispered, "Then you're mine." The words weren't a question. They were a claim. And I knew, in that moment, my life would never be the same. Epilogue. Weeks later, things had changed. Elena and I were closer than ever, our connection deeper, our passion stronger. Clara still appeared from time to time, sometimes as a friend, sometimes as a reminder of the strange bond the three of us now shared. I didn't have all the answers. I wasn't sure where it would lead. But one thing was certain, with Elena, nothing would ever be simple. And maybe that was exactly what I wanted.